Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 95 of Speaking from the Heart. This is going to be a tough episode for me because I am going to be absolutely raw today. It's something that I have been holding back for quite a long time, even starting this podcast, about the importance of not only creating that change that we need in our lives, but what is the ultimate cost of not being able to stay with that change. Really manifesting that change so that we are able to become better versions of ourselves. And I thought that was about time to share this story, along with all the things that I've been holding back, especially since the very first episode of this podcast, because I wanted to build the repertoire, the atmosphere, and also the encouragement of you, the listener, being able to learn so much about me and some of my viewpoints on a variety of different topics, whether that's been with guests that we've had on the show, let alone the individual topics that we've covered in these monologue episodes. I feel that for many of us, not being able to embrace or even acknowledge that change comes from a source of not only shame, but also guilt, not realizing our true potential to create the opportunities that we have lying dormant inside of ourselves. We have to learn that there are lessons in life that we have to teach ourselves, whether that is through the easy way, which means actually getting a mentor and assigning that opportunity to them to share that knowledge or even impart that type of response that we're looking for, or the hard way, falling into it and not being able to rise from it as a result of all the different things that we've gone through. Because if we fall in that hole and we don't crawl out of it, we're going to rely on the darkness to guide us. And the darkness is not the answer to solving a lot of what life's problems are all about. I know that for many episodes early on, I've talked about my suicide attempt and why I tried to end my life, why it was so important for me to end it all when everything I felt in my life was lost. But I didn't share a big part of the reason why I still struggle with it to this day. And even as I record this, I still have thoughts of what would it have been like if I would have ended my life? It would have been successful. What would it have been like if I would have just fallen off the face of the earth? But how many times have I waited, hoping that something would change, but not instilling that change in myself? Why would I be holding back when I know that I have these gifts to give now, and squandering those opportunities meant that I was also losing a part of myself? As I look back at my 37 years on this earth, I feel that I have been neglecting not just who I am as a male individual, but also what I've been able to contribute as a whole. Worrying about what other people thought of me and the ways in which I felt about myself were all intrinsically and extrinsically creating havoc in my life. Every day it would feel like another journey in which I was dealing with some sort of invisible force, trying to wreak havoc with all the things that I had going good in my life and trying to find the bad that was creating that emotional toll of not being able to continue. That voice of self-confidence was something that I was lacking for a very long time. And I'll give you some examples of what I mean by that. Not being able to find a woman to date. Relying on somebody else to tell me what I should hold as value. Feeling that I was incapable of holding a conversation, given the fact that at the times that I even talked about this, I had no idea that I was autistic. And to be able to communicate with others was very tough in its own right. But we don't wait for the right moments to be able to form those communicative relationships that we have with others. We make those moments come alive when we know that it's the right time to do so. But I struggled with life and not figuring out when that right time was, because that moment that I was trying to lead in my life was full of distraction. Whether it was people yelling at me, which even included my parents, even my siblings, and even others that made me feel like I was inadequate, really did destructive damage and it allowed me to retreat into a world that maybe I should have not created in the first place. I've relied on strangers' affirmations, which I remember even in the 1990s, early 2000s, relying on other people's words of wisdom on chat rooms that America Online, the internet provider that was the pro-choice for many people to be able to connect in what used to be the modem days. Yes, I'm talking about the 57,000 kilobytes per second that we would all connect to through one server or a couple servers, depending on where you were located at in the United States, to be able to access the internet. One of the things that I felt comfort in was being able to talk to others my age, at least I thought were my age, about some of the things that were going through in my life. But what ultimately led into some of those conversations turned into addiction. Addiction of wanting people's satisfaction, wanting people to acknowledge who I was. But it ultimately led into what I really dread talking about in this show today, which is my addiction to porn. Yes, that's right. I have an addiction to porn. I was really trying to satisfy not only my thirst for sexual pleasure, but also trying to figure out why, as somebody that was struggling with it so badly, and even struggles to this day with it, why I can't find acknowledgement or satisfaction in just the conversations that I have with other people. Why can't I just feel like I'm one person that can connect with another person and show my true value instead of relying on other images or even other conversations, for that matter, to make me feel good? Now, I won't be graphic about what I feel is really appropriate to this subject, especially disclosing this sort of fact. But I know that for many people that are listening to this, you might be dealing with addiction, but it's not necessarily porn. It could be alcohol. It could be even dealing with a significant other and trying to find that love in a relationship, but you're not finding it. So you stay with them thinking that as long as you stay with them, you will find that answer with them. But maybe you're even trying to find that moment in life where you feel that it will be the most fulfilling. Whether it is smoking a cigarette, getting to that moment where you can take a break and be able to smoke nicotine. Or maybe it's some sort of other harder drug. Fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, whatever the drug is, you might be turning to that as your source of escape. Sticking with that theme, is that your vice to give you the excuse to say that you're not going to change and that you're a worthless piece of shit? Those are the words that I always told myself, that I was a worthless piece of shit. And we have to find out why that time in our lives, whether that's something that we used to deal with in the past or even if we deal with it now, continues to be a tough subject to swallow, especially when it addresses some of the things that might be holding us back from having that prosperous life within our reach. So how long will it take for you to acknowledge something that I even have acknowledged today? Today, maybe you'll do it? Tomorrow, perhaps? How about 50 years from now? Well, that decision is really yours. But if you're not going to be able to spend your time to acknowledge that change comes from acknowledging first that you have a problem, well, you're never going to be able to solve that problem. One of my clients recently brought up the fact that it's really been a toxic environment, especially in the United States, to deal with a number of different politics. Things that we often have as camps or tribes, for that matter, which we've talked about on various episodes, of the importance of being able to find that tribe that makes you feel supported and grow in a way that's meaningful. But what I should have mentioned, even in those past episodes and even future episodes for that matter, is that your tribe doesn't come from learning from like-mindedness. It comes from others challenging your viewpoints in a safe environment to make you feel like you could be better, not only in your craft, but also in the things that you're trying to achieve. In other words, if you're sharing these things in people's lives that are really toxic in nature and you're not working on the stuff or the junk in the basement in order to address why you're holding yourself back, you're never going to excel. And you're never going to be able to create that moment of change in your life that will be able to be looked upon in the past, that you'll be able to look upon in the future, looking at your past, saying that that was the moment that everything changed. The longer you wait, the longer that the cost is by staying in that unfiltered mindset of yours. I'm not proud of what I've shared with you today. And I know that I will probably get messages and notices and phone calls about how much of a disgusting person that I am, that I look at those things. But I intentionally am being vulnerable for this reason and this reason alone. I, as a coach, as somebody that is a host of a podcast that talks about vulnerability and accountability, needs to come clean with what I have been struggling with for so long. Porn. That disgusting word. But yet, is it disgusting when you think about the fact that we're all human, striving for that connection and wanting to be loved? I think that we find love in all the wrong places. We find things that we really want to be attached to, or even attracted to for that matter, that will allow us to feel really good about ourselves. And sometimes those things that we feel good about, we don't even realize that down the road, they are actually the most disgusting things that we should have never even participated in the first place. But being able to separate ourselves from that means that you have to take a close, hard look at yourself. Face the truth and acknowledge that sometimes the things that you're doing are wrong. And being able to self-check yourself is the hardest language in itself to communicate. And if you think that you are talking to yourself and being able to have that conversation, and you're able to do it intentionally without having any sort of objective or subjective bias, you're still failing at it, because you cannot truly, as a human being, be able to separate yourself from what is fact versus fiction unless you absolutely talk about this with somebody that will understand and relate to you. You have to work on not just yourself, but the things that you have to achieve in order to understand that holding back, that feeling of not being able to address what's going on in your life, comes from the fact that you're not giving yourself truthful answers about yourself. In other words, if you wait too long to create that trust, that systemic change in your life with someone that can hold you accountable, let alone teach you important lessons about what you can do to move forward, you are a disgusting, terrible human being. That's right. I said it. And that's a pretty strong stance coming from a coach, somebody that's supposed to be there to help support you and guide you, set goals, make you accountable for what you're trying to do. Whether that's in a personal, professional sense, in which I do for my own business, or for some other matter, whether you are working with someone else. You are a disgusting piece of shit if you don't work on yourself. And that is what I am saying to myself today, and acknowledging with you, my listeners, that I have a lot more work to do to be better and to hold myself accountable. Now, if you're listening to this and you're saying to yourself that I'm telling you that you're a failure, you're wrong. Matter of fact, you're not only wrong about what I am all about on this show, but that means that you don't understand what this whole podcast has been all about. We have to be truthful with ourselves in order to get to the level that we really need to get to, which means answering tough questions that we otherwise don't want to answer because we're afraid of what the answers will be. And that's been my whole purpose also of doing this show. It's not just about the authentic conversations about topics that might hold us back, but it's about understanding that we need to be able to create that content, that context for ourselves, in which we're able to believe that we have the power to escape those negative thoughts about ourselves. You have that opportunity, and that is exactly what I'm saying today. Your opportunity to trust yourself and change and evolve into the person that you are allows you to create not only that content, not only that context, but allows you to not pay the cost anymore for holding back. You are not a failure. And by being a failure, if you think that you are, and allowing yourself to say that you are that disgusting person, that means that you're not open to that change, and you're, again, not listening to what I have to say. I am only speculating that for those people that never want to try to do that, whether they want to make that change in their lives or not, that they're not willing to work on themselves. Those are the people that should be disciplined. But the people that are intentionally trying to work on themselves and become better people than what they are today, you are the people that I want to work with. You are the people that deserve to be worked on. And you need to give yourself that value today, that you are giving yourself permission to make that change happen in your life, no matter how difficult or how extreme it might be. Because you have all to achieve and everything to lose if you don't work on change. As I've always said to many of my clients, and I have even advocated on this show, change is an inevitable part of the process of living on this earth. No matter where you live in the world, no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what circumstances individually that might be the precursor to what got you where you are in the first place, whether that's in a good way or a bad way, we all have work that we need to work on. It means that you are capable of not just creating that best value in your life, but it means that you have the mindset to change everything that you find is absolutely disgusting in order to no more pay the cost of not being able to make change. So this is for you today. Acknowledge to somebody that you really care about, something that you're deeply struggling with, but you're not quite sure or afraid of how to best say it. And it's okay if it doesn't come out right. It's all about you taking that first step. I want you to take that first step today, just like I did, in sharing my difficulty, because I know I'm going to get help for it. This testament, this episode, will allow me to share this with others so that they will know and understand what I'm going through. And when I have no ability to communicate that because of my autism or because of other means, you have the power to change it. I want you to stop paying the expenses and the costs that are involved with something like this, because you don't need to pay it anymore. Not only are you going to pay that to somebody else that will help you work through it, but you're going to be soon charging yourself with that ultimate responsibility to help yourself not only become the best version of yourself, not only to find your voice in this ever-changing world, not only to become authentic in nature, but through humility, you will gain strength. And that change will not only become the best version of yourself, but the best feeling in the world to know that you finally have embraced it to keep moving forward. Thanks for listening to episode number 95 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.